Hello, Petal. How are you doing? How are things? Thank you all so very, very much for being here and for interacting in the comments section. It's a real joy. I can't tell you how much pleasure it brings me. It makes me so happy to see everybody interacting with the book and interacting with each other. It's just really nice and really heartwarming. So I really, really genuinely appreciate you being here very, very much. Right, and on top of that, I'm always going to say, if you could hit the notifications bell, bing, bing, that'd be great, because it really helps me out. And a like button if you like it. And then if you want to subscribe or share, well, that's always appreciated. But at the end of the day, it's your choice. It's up to you. Most important thing is that we're here to find out what's going on with Frank, what's going on with Emily. Well, Dennis Tanner's mum, now she's bound to come out with something spanking in the best possible way that will help everybody out, I'm pretty sure. She's a bit of a dark horse, Dennis Tanner's mum, our Rosie Tanner. I've always enjoyed her throughout the series. She's kind of like, you think she's that mother-in-law or mother that everybody hates. It's no battle axe, is really nasty, but we know she's got a heart of gold, really. But how's it going to turn out? Is her badassery going to come out in this one? Anyway, I've waffled far too long, so... Chapter 15 of The Better Mousetrap, J.W. Wells & Co., Book 5 by the amazing, stunning, wonderful Mr. Tom Holt. Frank woke up and opened his eyes. Looking down at him was the loveliest girl he'd ever seen. She was pale and fair, with eyes the colour of clear spring skies and a perfect heart-shaped face. She was wearing a flowing white dress that seemed to shimmer faintly, and she was gazing at him with a look of pure, deep compassion. An angel, he thought. I've died, and... He thought again. Knock it off, will you? He said. The angel grinned at him. Had you go in there for a moment, didn't I? She said, as she transformed into a reassuringly hideous goblin. Couldn't resist. Anyhow, you better go in and see our Dennis while he's free. Frank rubbed the back of his head. What hit me? I did, said Mr. Tanner's mother. Oh, I thought you were someone else, she explained. Let me guess, Amelia Carrington. The goblin grinned approvingly. You're smart, she said. Not like your dad, bless him. I always reckoned he was like confectioner's custard, sweet and thick. You thought she'd got hold of the door. It was a possibility, Mr. Tanner's mother said, and not a risk worth taking, if you follow me. Bash first, look to see who it is at your leisure. It's the goblin way. So I imagine. Frank stood up. His head hurt, and he felt woozy and a bit sick. Had Mr. Tanner's mother finally hit on the elusive secret of the alcohol-free hangover? Emily's in there already, I suppose. What? Emily Spitzer? The girl who was with me. A horrible thought struck him, though not quite as hard as Mr. Tanner's mother had done. You didn't bash her too, did you? A puzzled look in those small, round, red eyes. Sorry, dear. Who are you talking about? Emily woke up. Frank! Frank! She called out. Her voice echoed in the darkness. Not a reassuring sound. Something snagged her attention, and she sniffed. Some smells are unmistakable. Instinctively she reached for her toolkit, which wasn't there. A pity. Never go on a job without the proper equipment. It was the first rule of pest control. It's a bit humiliating to have to tell the client that you're just nipping back to the office for a reel of electric cable, or a mass spectrometer, or an RPG-7 anti-tank rocket. It's really humiliating to get killed. But she wasn't on a job, was she? Her head was spinning a bit, but not so much that she couldn't remember. She'd been with Frank. They'd been marooned in the 60s, but they'd talked Erskine into giving them the other door. What other door? Skip that for now. And they'd been on their way to see Dennis Tanner, for some reason that she was sure she'd understood at the time. So what was she doing in a dark underground cavern that smelled disconcertingly of dragon? Interesting question. Calm down, Emily told herself. just because a place stinks of dragon, it doesn't necessarily follow that there's a live one in here with me. The pong tends to linger quite some time after the dragon's gone, you know. This could be the strong room of any one of a number of banks that she'd disinfested over the last 6 months. No way of knowing in the dark, of course. As if on cue, a light flared, showing her curved rock walls and a low rock ceiling, on which droplets of water sparkled as they dribbled down encrustations of limestone slurry. Being able to see her surroundings should have made her feel better, but it didn't, mostly because the light was red. When dragons snore, theorists claim, the plasma flares are as hot as the surface of the sun. She listened and heard the plop, plop, hiss of droplets of molten stone falling and cooling on the cavern's damp floor. Sooner or later, the walls of a dragon's bedchamber turn to glass, giving their living quarters a decidedly retro 70s look. Oh, Emily thought. Even in situations as desperate as this, it's possible to keep calm, provided you can anaesthetise your mind completely. Let's think, she ordered herself. If there's an unblocked exit in this place, it should be possible to locate it, even in the pitch dark, by the presence of a telltale cool draught. A match or lighter flame will quiver slightly, and there you are. Of course, even the glow of a match, combined with the smell of burning phosphorus, would wake the dragon up as effectively as a radio alarm clock turned to Terry Wogan. Her phone. Of course, all she had to do was ring the office, and they'd trace her by her signal and send someone to... All right, Emily thought. Weapons. Improvised weapons. Kurt Lundqvist had once killed a dragon in the vaults of the Vatican by forcing it to swallow a crystal and gold reliquary from its own hoard, on which it had obligingly choked to death. St. John Xavier Willoughby, under similar circumstances in the strong room of the Credit Lyonnais in Dijon, had bashed a 50-foot bull dragon to death with a hastily scooped fistful of Krugerrands stuffed inside one of his socks. And had not Graziano Fiocchi poisoned the dragon in the stacks of the Uffizi with a lethal cocktail of white lead, cobalt and lapis lazuli scraped from the borders of late 15th century religious paintings? Well, she thought, bully for them. They'd had the raw materials to work with. This dragon, by contrast, didn't appear to have acquired a hoard. She reached out and scrabbled on the floor, but felt nothing under her fingers but grime and wet stone. The flare, she remembered, hadn't lit up the whole place with the stunning warm orange of fire reflected in polished gold. No hoard. Very unusual. But not, she remembered, unprecedented. So if it wasn't guarding precious metals or artwork, what was it doing here? Emily thought about that for a bit, but soon gave it up as too difficult and also irrelevant. More to the point, what was she doing here? The logical assumption was that someone had brought her there so that the dragon could kill her. Furthermore, given her trade, death by dragon would be readily put down as an unfortunate industrial accident, her own fault, of course, since she'd somehow neglected to bring her toolkit. That fitted in quite neatly, since all Colin Gomez's previous attempts on her life could equally have been passed off as death in the line of duty. The spider, the spectral warriors, not to mention rescuing old Mrs. Thompson's cat. The second door, now she remembered, just as Frank had been about to go through, a second door had opened in the wall. Emily had stopped to stare at it. It had opened, and that was as far as she could recall. Erskine, tortured by conscience and neglected duty. A Colin Gomez quadruple cross. It could have easily been Amelia herself, or one of her many obedient servants. Didn't matter. In any event, it was just as obvious as a lorry in a salad bowl that she wasn't getting out of this one, not unless Frank came and rescued her yet again, and in order to do that, he'd have to know where she was, and how, pray, was he supposed to find that out? Another advantage of death by a dragon is that there's no body, no corpse, no paperwork, no inquest, no insurance claim. She'd simply vanish in a puff puff of smoke, and the poor lamb wouldn't have a clue where to start looking for her. Her own stupid fault, needless to say. If she'd listened to Frank, they'd be in Vancouver right now, with a new life to look forward to. As it was, even if he somehow managed to find out what had happened to her, the picture was clear and sharp in her mind. Frank stepping through the door into the cavern, to be greeted by twin blasts of heat so murderous that Arctic pack ice thawed and the sea level rose a 1/4 inch all around the world. It would be mercifully quick, yes, but agonisingly final. Oh well, she thought, that's that then. Emily sorted and catalogued her regrets. They came in a wide variety of sizes and priorities, ranging from not having a child of her own someday down to never finding out if it was really true that dragons set their tails on fire every time they ate beans. Never getting to be a partner was in there, as she'd anticipated, but to her surprise, it found its level about halfway down the list, sandwiched between never having been to India and not getting to discover whether Frank snored. So, she reflected, more wryly than bitterly, it really was nothing more than a means of earning a living. That said, never landing my toe forcefully on Amelia Carrington's designer-clad arse was in there too, so high up it was practically at the top. Practically, but not quite. In fact, it had only just scraped bronze. Both the gold and silver medalists, she noted, were directly Frank-related, and Vancouver would have been as good a setting for them as any. But then again, too few to mention. Now then, should she, out of pure professional pride, carry on hoping and improvising and hiding right to the bitter, very fiery, very spicy, very toasty, warm end? Or would it be far less hassle just to cough loudly and get it over with? Then the dragon spoke. All it actually said was followed by a snort and a sharp contorted wriggle, for all the world as though it was trying to yank more than its fair share of a diamond-studded cloth of gold duvet. But what it also said was, she's here. Fine, Emily thought. Who's she then? The cat's mother? The dragon snuggled its muzzle under its left forepaw and grunted. It also said,
You are here.
Well, yes, I know that. Thank you so much. Look, can we please just get on with it before I get cramp? No researcher has ever recorded an instance of a dragon talking in its sleep. By the same token, no researcher has conducted the relevant tests on a dragon born in a vat of green goo and raised to maturity in the time it takes to boil a kettle.
It's all right,
the dragon said.
I don't mind. You can only kill this body, which is more of a hindrance than a help. The essential part of me can never die, since it has already dreamed the dream. Please, carry on. In your own time.
Emily frowned. It struck her that the dragon was a wee bit confused about who was supposed to be killing whom.
Oh, there can only be one possible outcome. I have seen it after all. One single intersection on the circumference of the dream. You are Emily Spitzer. How could you possibly fail?
At this juncture, Emily felt constrained to point out that she'd taken the same attitude to her biology GCSE and therefore done no revision, with the result that she'd barely scraped a C. Once bitten, no pun intended.
Don't you know?
The voice inside the sleepy, grumbling noises sounded faintly amused.
Everybody knows. I've only been alive for a week, and I know.
Know what, for crying out loud?
The prophecy.
Sorry, you've lost me. What
Not perhaps the right word. Prophecy is a vague, unreliable glimpse through the keyhole of sequential time. In the dream, it's simply another solidly historical event, something we have known about ever since the day in the mid-Cretaceous period when a recklessly whimsical time-traveller fed steroids to a pterodactyl and dragonkind was born. We have preserved it, analysed it, looked back on it in both sorrow and anger. Surely humans know it too.
Some humans, maybe. Not this one.
It is recorded in the dream,
the dragon said,
that the greatest dragon of all shall be born not of dragon, but of a vat of something a bit like undercooked pea soup. That it shall never see the sun, but shall live out its brief span in a cavern, guarding the avatar of wealth known as bauxite. That its dream came to be only because a woman whose name is too unimportant to be remembered wanted to.
Here the words faltered, and instead Emily saw in her mind's eye a complex diagram, colour-coded and plotted on 5 axes, annotated with notes of commodity prices, hostile takeovers and sine waves representing mining stocks on the Hang Seng. Anybody else would have assumed it was Damien Hirst trying to be funny with a pack of felt-tip pens, but Emily saw it and she understood. "The bitch," she said aloud. "Mistake." The dragon quivered, lifted its head, opened one eye and shut it again. By the red glare of its accelerated breathing, Emily watched as it slowly relaxed back into sleep.
Where was I?
The diagram. Amelia Carrington cornering the bauxite market.
Oh, yes. It is also recorded in the dream that Emily Spitzer will face the greatest of all dragons in a dark place, and when they fight she will win. There is no more, since the circle of the dream curves away.
That's, fascinating. Does the dream also record how Emily Spitzer manages to kill the greatest dragon of all time, armed only with a mobile phone and a roll of peppermints?
Of course.
Well?
The dream also ordains, don't spoon-feed the lazy cow, make her figure it out for herself.
Aha! The dream sounds suspiciously like my mother.
The dream is all our mothers, and our daughters, and ourselves. How perceptive of you, as a mere human, to have worked that out for yourself.
Thank you, Emily said, not really knowing what she was thanking the dragon for, but politeness never does any harm. Look, can I have a moment to think about this?
Of course. Oddly enough, I'm in no hurry to be killed. Take all the time you need.
Prophecy, she thought. Well, there were 2 schools of thought in the profession about prophecy. One held that it was effectively impossible, since nobody could get information from the future without going there, and that could only be done with a portable door. The other school replied, don't ask how, but we just knew you were going to say that. But supposing there really was a prophecy, clawed down from generation to generation of dragons, and that she was the Emily Spitzer referred to in it, and this was the dragon. If so, she was going to have to fight the bloody thing, and somehow or other she would win. No, rewind. What had it actually said? When they fight, she will win. Maybe just sloppy wording, garbled in oral transmission, but... Excuse me, she thought.
What? Oh, you again. I was circling.
Yes, well, sorry to be a nuisance, only...
I was turning inside the circle of the dream. Revolution and evolution within a closed system. Has it never occurred to you that nature abhors a straight line? Throw a stone into the air and it will rise and fall in a curve, modified by gravity. Is it not mere sloppy thinking to believe that time runs in straight lines when nothing else in nature does?
Only, Emily interrupted grimly, I was thinking about the prophecy.
Time runs rings around us all, so the precise moment of death is also the instant of birth. Can it be a coincidence that we are born screaming? Surely the newborn's howl is nothing but a reaction to the terror of the previous moment, the closing of the diaphragm that will open again a mere moment later.
Yes, Emily insisted. Quite, but about this wretched prophecy, you're sure it said when they fight, not if.
A pointless quibble, since there is no if in an infinite universe. If implies that something may or may not happen, but in infinity every possibility is realized, and therefore, sooner or later, everything happens. If, therefore, is just another way of saying when, and accordingly...
Ugh, whatever. Look, Emily insisted. If it says when, then we don't have to fight at all, which means I don't have to find a way of killing you, and you don't have to die. Wouldn't that be better all round, don't you think?
You assert that you may not be my foreordained doom, after all. You would contradict that which is established in the patterns of the circle.
Well, I suppose so, yes.
Dream on, girlfriend. It's established. There is nothing anybody can do.
Bullshit. It doesn't say Emily Spitz will face the greatest of all dragons in a dark place. They will fight and she will win. It says when they fight. Difference? See? Pause. Then.
You are suggesting a postponement?
No. Well, yes, I suppose I am. An indefinite one. A bit like the difference between saying you'll die tomorrow and you'll die eventually. Thoughtful silence.
There's a difference?
Oh, for crying out. To me, yes. You can please yourself. Only I'd quite like to get out of here, and I'd much prefer not to have to wake you up and fight you, because I don't particularly want to kill you, and I really don't want you to kill me. So if there's any sort of compromise we can reach...
Why don't you want to kill me? You're a dragon slayer.
Yes, but...
Spiders. The word dragon slayer fills your mind with images of spiders. You crush them because they are intolerable. Therefore, by the same token...
No! Well, it's not the same. I mean, here I am talking to you. It wouldn't feel right. It'd be like, I don't know, murder?
Because we have talked to each other.
Put like that, I guess so, Emily replied awkwardly. I don't know. It's just a silly, irrational feeling. I mean, look, you don't want me to kill you, do you?
I take no interest.
What? But you can't...
As far as I'm concerned, it has already happened, and it wasn't so bad. The circle turns. I am still here.
Oh, be quiet, you stupid bloody reptile. If I'm not killing you, I'm not killing you. Understood?
If you say so. I was just pointing out that an inconsistency...
Then don't.
Fine, as you wish. I have to say, though, that for a dominant species, you have a rather lackadaisical approach to maintaining your dominance. I don't want to kill you because you could talk to me. What kind of attitude is that?
On the other hand, Emily thought, if I could come up with a way of killing it, at least that'd make it shut up. Here's the deal, she proposed confidently. Let me know how I can get out of here. I'll go away and promise never to come back. You stay here, snuggle up with your manganese bauxite. All right, bauxite. Be happy, live long and prosper. I don't care. I just want to get out of here and carry on with my life.
Do you really?
Yes.
Forgive me for saying so, but that's rather like me asking what you want for your 12th birthday, and you replying, you want to be 12. Your life will carry on regardless of me. Until it stops, of course. In the dream, on the other hand...
For a moment, Emily felt like giving up. If the stupid creature couldn't be bothered to stop talking drivel and cooperate, then she was trying to save both of their lives. It would have been very different, she admitted, if she'd had a bucket full of industrial-strength Slaymore with her. But she didn't. And she was stuck in there with it, and from the various things it had said, she'd got the impression that if it woke up, there'd be little less conversation and a little more action, with consequences that she'd prefer to avoid, even if this daft prophecy thing was true.
Besides,
the dragon said,
you can't get out. There's no exit.
What did you just...
When they brought you here, they collapsed the only tunnel with explosives. You'd have to dig through I don't know how much rock and rubble, and I don't think you'd be up to the task. Not without heavy machinery.
Oh.
Or, what's its name?
A portable door.
Sorry, I don't know what that means. Sort of a bit of rubber mat, rolled up inside a cardboard tube. Is that what you had in mind?
Yes, but I haven't got one.
I haven't either. Not anymore. A great shame. It would have solved your problem for you. A remarkable invention, I must say, particularly for a species that doesn't know about the dream. I can't imagine how your people came up with it. Rather like a blind man inventing the camera.
Just a minute. Did you say you haven't got one anymore?
Yes.
A sharp, stabbing pain started up in the front of Emily's head. So you did have one once?
Oh, yes. Though, of course, I never got round to using it. As far as I was concerned, it was just an extremely valuable object, and something desirable in itself, quite apart from what it was capable of doing. Like a pension fund buying up old master paintings. Of course, some of the best pension fund managers in the world are dragons.
You had one once, but you just laid on it?
That's right. Yes.
In a bank vault?
Of course. You should know. You were there.
I was? No, wait. Hang on. You can't possibly mean...
You were there. You sat in the corridor outside the vault, waiting for me to die. Then, I don't know what happened then, of course. Because I died.
You'd...
Haven't you been listening? That's why it's really a prophecy. Just a memory. A memory of something that has already happened and which will happen again. Hence, of course, the inherent irony of your profession. Every dragon you've ever killed is me, and everybody who's ever killed a dragon is you. All that talk of circles, you see, was a hint.
Now, just a moment. The sound the words inadvertently said out loud, said out very loud, hung in the air, dead air, for a full 3 seconds. Then, just as Emily thought, oh shit, and started to scramble to her feet, the dragon woke up.
Slow down,
Dennis Tanner said.
for crying out loud. Now, where were we? You came through, but the Spitzer chick, Emily,
Frank growled.
that's her name, whatever, she didn't follow, and you thought you'd heard her say which one just as you stepped over the threshold.
Dennis leaned back, bit the end off a cigar and spat it out.
You realise, he said bitterly, that by law I'm not allowed to smoke in my own bloody office. Health and safety. The only way I can get away with it is by registering this building as an annex to the Goblin High Commission in Tavistock Square, which makes it diplomatic so I can do what I like. Which one? He repeated thoughtfully, implying 2 doors. Yes? I don't know, do I? Frank snapped. Sorry, yes, I suppose so. And Amelia's got one, and that clown Colin Gomez gave you the other.
Dennis Tanner scowled.
Weird as a barrel full of ferrets, the whole thing. Still, that's a magic business for you. Did your dad ever tell you about the time he took on Countess Judy and the Fate? Now that really was weird, because...
No, I didn't, and I'd prefer it if you didn't either. Look, Frank said, almost pleading. All I know is she's disappeared, and I don't know where to start searching for her. Couldn't you look in a crystal ball or something? Dennis Tanner didn't bother to reply to that.
My guess is, he said, knowing Amelia as I do, that there's more than one bit of nonsense going on here. The thing about her is she does like to run things together rather than keep them separate. which explains why she took a fairly roundabout way of getting hold of the door. A more straightforward person would have chased you to where you live and had someone steal the door from your pocket while you were asleep. Instead, there's this complicated rigmarole with better mousetraps and God knows what. Seems to me, he went on, that the main plan for getting rid of your Emily and the door only entered into it, no pun intended, when she refused to stay dead. Soon as Amelia figured out that whoever was saving Emily must be using the door, she decided it would be a nice bonus, or maybe she sifted her priorities, put getting the door ahead of the other scam. But I'm pretty sure the Emily must die thing came first.
Fascinating, Frank said, with a certain lack of sincerity. But how does that?
Fortuitously,
Dennis Tanner went on, ignoring the interruption.
I have a pretty good idea of what the main plan is, mostly because I'm in it, right up to my neck. Bauxite, bless you. It's a mineral, Dennis said sternly. Well, of course you know that. Paul and Sophie's little boy. Of course you do.
He paused, frowned, puffed at the cigar to keep it alight.
And your Emily was in pest control, right? Yes, I see.
Dennis rubbed his eyelids with his fingertips.
Now, we've got to ask ourselves, why would Amelia want to kill one of her own employees? Actually, that's a pretty dumb question. When I had employees, there were times I'd cheerfully have slaughtered the whole lot of them, particularly, he added with a grin, your parents. But aside from that, if she wanted to get shot of Emily, why not just fire her instead?
Frank shrugged.
I hope you're just thinking aloud rather than hoping I'll contribute something useful, he said.
You bet. Same reason I talk to myself a lot. It always pays to talk to the smartest guy present. And the answer is, if she fired her, Emily would probably just go away and get another job with another firm. After all, she's got a living to earn, and I'm assuming she's good at what she does. We don't got a bundle on references and stuff in this business, so there wouldn't be any of that what you'll never work in this town again stuff. No, no, no.
Dennis added, blowing smoke out of his nose. Blue from the left nostril, red from the right.
What I'm thinking is this. Amelia didn't want Emily on the staff any more, and she didn't want her to go working for anyone else either. Okay so far?
I suppose so.
I really don't know enough about... Stay with me, Dennis said reassuringly. I know enough about the trade for both of us. All right, he went on. Let's suppose we're right. Now then, why would Amelia want those things?
He looked at Frank, who shook his head.
You're thinking aloud, remember? I'm just sitting here doing background noises. We're assuming that Emily is good at the job, Dennis said, and we'll also assume there's no internal political stuff going on, or at least there wasn't when this all started. I'm sure Emily would have mentioned it, although she might well not have known about it. But anyway, here's what I think. I think Amelia wanted to make sure that Emily wasn't working in pest control for Carringtons or anyone else at a certain point in time, namely now. And knowing Amelia, I'm prepared to bet that the reason she wanted Emily out of the way was all tied up with the bauxite scam she's working on.
Frank looked at him blankly.
Why? He said.
Dennis replied smugly, and he quickly filled Frank in on the background to the new wire timber strike and Amelia's aim of cornering the world bauxite market.
Which dovetails quite plausibly, he concluded, because on the one hand we got a missing dragon slayer, and on the other hand we got this huge scheme resting on the fact that there's a dragon blockading the new bauxite find, and not, he added, just any old dragon. Latest word on the grapevine is it's taken out 5 specialist teams that have been sent to get rid of it. And the blokes who got torched were the best in the business, and from what I've gathered, they tried all the approved methods and none of them worked.
That's so sad, Frank grumbled.
So bloody what? Have I really got to spell it out for you? Amelia wants Emily out of the trade because for some reason we don't know about, Emily is the only dragon slayer in the business who can zap Amelia's pet dragon, in which case,
Dennis added, jumping to his feet and stuffing things snatched off his desktop into his pockets.
Wherever the dragon is right now would probably be a good place to look for Emily. Of course, she might be a bit two-dimensional by now, since if I'm right, Amelia will have sent her in without any useful dragon-killing kit, thinking, maybe I can't get rid of stupid girl, but I bet my dragon could, provided Spitzer doesn't have any of her toys with her, so when we get there we may just find a familiar-looking silhouette on a blackened cave wall.
He frowned at the wretched expression on Frank's face and went on. But maybe you and the door could do something about that. And of course, he added, grinning, there's a distinct possibility that it's all some kind of a trap. And when we get there, we won't live long enough to feel a thing. But what the hell? The broadest grin Frank had ever seen spread across Dennis Tanner's face. When you grow up in the rough and tumble of goblin society, he said, you get to the point where mortal peril is a bit like rain in Manchester. You only notice it when it isn't there anymore. Let's go and have a look, shall we? You know, he added wistfully, I've always secretly fancied having a go on that thing. What? Do you mean that? Dennis nodded. And from what you've been telling me, it sounds like my dear mother had it stashed away somewhere all the time. Never thought to mention it. And then, he added bitterly, she gave it to your dad, presumably because she felt sorry for him. Can you believe that? Possibly the rarest, most valuable artefact in the world. Something I'd have found incredibly useful in my work, and she just gives it away because she feels sorry for the hired help. Fine, she never felt sorry for me, though if anybody ever deserved sympathy, it's me. Oh? Growing up with a mother like that? Are you kidding? All right, Dennis said, bracing himself. Let's see it then.
Obediently, Frank took out the door. Dennis stared at it for about 3 seconds, his face a blank.
That's it, is it? Yes, my birthright. Well, I suppose you could see it in those terms. Looks like a bit of a damp-proof membrane. Yes.
Dennis shrugged.
Oh well, he said. Let's go if we're going.
But Frank did not move, and his grip on the door tightened ever so slightly. Just to clarify, he said, you're coming with me to the cave of a giant dragon who's already killed the best dragon slayers in the business on the off chance that we can rescue my girl. Is that about... Dennis nodded. Why? Dennis smiled pleasantly.
Now there, he said, you have the difference between you and your old man, and it's the reason why there may still be just a tiny glimmer of hope for you yet. You're suspicious because you can't see what's in it for me. Your dad would have assumed that I'd seen the light or got religion, and I was helping you out because it's the right thing to do. Yes, fair enough. What's in it for me is the biggest bauxite strike in history, as against being ripped into little wet shreds by my blood relatives. Good enough reason?
Frank nodded uncertainly.
If you say so. I just want to find Emily. Ah, bless.
Mr. Tanner shook his head.
Tell me, he said, haven't you been tempted to knit forward through that thing, you know, into the future? Take a look at yourself in 30 years' time. You and the missus, nice little bungalow somewhere, Volvo, golden retriever, National Trust season tickets, round-robin newsletter tucked in all the Christmas cards, swing on the lawn for when the grandchildren visit. Well, no, actually.
Mr. Tanner nodded.
Sensible boy, he said firmly. Just because the abyss is there waiting for you doesn't mean you have to go and stare into it. Oh, and I nearly forgot.
He pushed past Frank, opened the connecting door, and yelled, Mother.
Oh, Frank said. She's coming too, then?
Dennis nodded.
When putting yourself in danger, always bring a weapon. We could take a flamethrower and a couple of Uzis, but why settle for second best?
A stunning brunette in a close-fitting scarlet dress and matching shoes put her head round the door.
I heard that, she said. Oh, for God's sake, Mum, you're not going out looking like that, are you?
The brunette grinned.
He used to hate it when I picked him up from school, she said. Mum, why can't you be fat and drained looking like all the other mummies? Of course, she said sweetly. You've got all that to look forward to. Come on then, she added, standing in front of the closed door like a cat waiting to be let out. Don't just stand there like a prune, Dennis. We got work to do.
For a split second, Emily stood staring into a pair of small, round, yellow eyes. Then she jumped. As she landed painfully on one knee, she felt the intolerable heat. The thin stream of white plasma must have missed her by several feet, but she felt the skin on the back of her neck blister and melt. No time to waste on feeling pain. She rolled, scrambled onto her hands and knees, and scuttled as fast as she could go away from the direction of the blast. Fortuitous, of course. Hiding from something whose mildest sigh can melt rock is a waste of time and effort. Even if there had been any sort of a cover handy, huddling behind it would have been about as much use as parrying a lightsaber with a stick of celery. He's not coming, Emily thought. Time is his oyster, so to speak. If he was coming, he would be here by now. Oh well. The dragon's head turned. She looked up and found herself staring into 2 huge black nostrils, dark and endless as the mouth of an underground line, where it leaves the platform and vanishes into the cavernous gloom. Any second now, there'd be light at the end of the tunnel, bright red, and not at all what the original coiner of the phrase had in mind. She felt a stir in the air as the dragon breathed in. Behind her, something moved. Emily only noticed it subconsciously, since it really couldn't matter, could it? Wrong. Fingers tipped with bright coral nails clamped tight on her shoulder and jerked her backwards through a doorway just as the dragon let fly. She was in his arms. Well, all right, unexpected, but she was actually mildly surprised to discover really the only place she wanted to be. It had other attractions, of course, no dragon, for example, but the best thing about it was the gentle urgency of the squeeze and the way he said, "You're safe." "Not a mark on it," said a woman's voice behind her somewhere. "Wonderful gadget, these. Here, I suppose you'd better have it back." One of the encircling arms detached itself from the hug for a moment, but not for very long. "Thanks," Frank said. "Don't mention it. So this is your girlfriend, then?" An appraising tone of voice, not impressed. He let her go. "Emily, this is Dennis Tanner's mother. She's a goblin." She looked over her shoulder. Of course she knew about goblins. Even so. "We're in Dennis's office," the goblin woman explained. "We rescued you." Pause. "Nah, really, it's no bother. Please don't mention it." "Thank you," Emily said. The grin on the goblin woman's face had a long and eventful pedigree. Embedded in it were little fragments of ancient memories, thus travellers seeking shelter from a storm in a mountain cave, in whose shadows lurked a hidden terror. Dark, dripping mine shafts, where the footfall you hear behind you might not be an echo. A glint of red eyes and soft, vicious laughter on the edge of hearing, just as well, Emily thought. She's on our side. "You're welcome," the goblin woman said. "Now then, what the hell were you playing at down there? You're supposed to have killed the bloody thing." "I'm sorry," Emily said, "but I didn't have my stuff with me." Derisive snort. "I've cried out loud. If you were really any good, you'd have found a way. I remember Kurt Lundqvist." "I'm sorry," Emily lied, "but it's not that easy. Besides, She stopped herself just in time. Besides, I didn't want to kill it. Not really what her audience wanted to hear, not when they'd just risked their lives rescuing her. There's a time and a place for non-violent conflict resolution, mutual respect and understanding, and David Cameron-esque dragon-hugging. This, she felt, was not it. "I was scared," she said. And that was true, too. The goblin woman raised an eyebrow. Frank said, "Well, of course you were. Anybody would have been," which was sweet, but very unhelpful. The little shrivelled man sitting on the edge of the desk was looking at commodity prices on his computer screen. "Anyway," Frank said, "you're safe now, that's all that matters, and I think we should—" It should have been a tender moment, but Emily wasn't listening. She was too busy staring at the thin black lines appearing on the wall behind her as if drawn in by an invisible tawny hatch. 2 uprights and a lintel, and a black dot where a doorknob would be. "Frank," she said, in a hoarse little voice. Too late. A door had opened in the wall, and Amelia Carrington stepped through it. Ooh, Amelia Carrington's got the other door. So Erskine did take it back to her. What's going to happen next? Dun dun dun. But Dennis Tanner's mum, Rosie Tanner, what a little firecracker. Frickin' love that character. I knew she'd come through. I knew she would come through. So, we're getting on for it. We're nearly at the end. How are you feeling? You still enjoying it? I hope so. I really hope so. I think we've got 2 chapters left, and then we're moving on to the next one. But, as ever, thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate you and your indulgence. It makes me very, very happy. By all means, please leave a comment. Let us know how you're getting on, how things are going. And big smiles, big hugs. And I should be back in the next couple of days, all being well. I am feeling brighter and an awful lot better than I was, thankfully, day by day. You know how it goes. So take care of yourselves. Big hugs, and we shall be back in a couple of days with chapter 16. And please, 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 if you get this far, please, 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 ding, ding, ding the like bell, if you like button, if you like it, and bing, bing, bing the notifications bell, and if you can subscribe if you don't already, that'd be awesome. And if you want to share, please do. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days. Take it easy, stay safe. I really do need some music at the end of this. Or something. Take it easy.